All right, let's talk about a big one for 787 operators. The FAA just dropped a critical update, Airworthiness Directive 2026-02-10. Now, this new rule actually replaces an older one, and it tackles a pretty serious safety issue. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what this means for you, what you need to do, and, believe it or not, the long-term benefits. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll get into the unsafe condition, the why behind this whole thing. Then we'll figure out if your fleet is affected. After that, it's all about the mandatory actions and deadlines. And here's the good part, the terminating action. We'll also cover the key takeaways for management, and finally, wrap it all up with a compliance summary and your next steps.
All right, first things first, what is the actual problem we're dealing with? Let's get right into the unsafe condition that got this whole AD started. The FAA doesn't mince words on this one. They've pinpointed a really serious risk. And it all starts somewhere you probably wouldn't expect. The lavatories. We're talking about undetected water leaks. And these aren't just some minor annoyance, a little puddle on the floor. No, these leaks can kick off a chain reaction of failures that could have, well, some really, really bad outcomes. So how does this all play out? It's a four-step domino effect, really. It all begins with a simple, undetected leak in the Faucet Control Module, or FCM, in the lab. From there, that water doesn't just stay put. It migrates, seeping right down below the passenger floor and into the electronic equipment bays. And that's where the real trouble starts. The moisture gets into flight-critical electronics and causes damage. The end result? You're looking at a potential loss of multiple aircraft systems, which is a huge hazard to safe flight. The whole point of this AD is to stop this chain reaction right at step one, the leak. Okay, so now that we know how serious this is, the big question on everyone's mind is probably, does this apply to my airplanes? Let's figure out exactly which aircraft are on the list. The FAA is super specific about this, so you've got to pay close attention to see if your particular airframes are covered. And here it is, the moment of truth, pulled directly from the Airworthiness Directive. This table shows you the exact line numbers for every single affected 787, 8, 9, and 10. So this is where your planning and engineering folks need to get out their fleet list and do a line-by-line check to see which of your birds are on the hook. Okay, so let's say you've checked the list and, yep, you've got affected aircraft. What now? Let's break down exactly what the FAA requires you to do and, just as importantly, when you need to get it done. This table basically gives you the playbook. You've got 4 key actions here. Now, those repetitive visual inspections from the old AD, yeah, those are still around, for now. But this AD adds 3 big new steps. You got to replace the Faucet Control Module, you need to install some moisture management devices, and then you have to perform a leak test. And for the nitty-gritty on how to do all this, you'll need to turn to the specific Boeing alert bulletins listed here. All right, now for my favorite part of this whole ad. This is the good news. We're talking about the permanent fix, what's known as the terminating action. And trust me, this is a game changer for your long-term maintenance planning. And this right here shows you why it's such a big deal. The before picture was pretty bleak. You were stuck doing those repetitive visual inspections forever, basically, for the entire life of the aircraft. But now, the after is so much better. This new AD lets you swap out that old leaky faucet control module for a new, redesigned part. And once you do that, boom, the repetitive inspections are gone, terminated. That is a massive, massive win for your maintenance budget and your hangar schedule. So, the engineers have a clear path forward. But what does all this mean for the folks in management? Let's talk about the impact on operations. And, of course, the budget. First, let's look at the scale of this. In the US alone, the FAA figures there are about 155 registered aircraft that fall under this directive. Now, for that mandatory faucet control module replacement, you're looking at an estimated cost of about $6,276 per plane. That covers both the labor and the parts. And then, for some of the fleet, about 52 aircraft specifically, there's an extra step of installing moisture devices. That adds another $8,325. But, and this is a big but, you have to think of this as an investment. This is the cost to buy yourself out of those never-ending inspections. It pays for itself over time, for sure. Of course, it's not just about the money you spend. There are some big operational things to think about. You've got to plan for aircraft downtime, getting the planes into the hangar. You need to get on the phone with your suppliers and make sure you can get your hands on these new FCMs. Obviously, your maintenance program docs will need an update, and here's a little pro tip straight from the FAA. They mentioned that some of this could be covered under warranty, so that is definitely a conversation worth having with Boeing.
Okay, let's pull all this together. It's time for the final summary of what you need to do and the very next steps your team should be taking. So if you need the 30-second version, here it is. Who needs to act? Any operator with those specific 787 line numbers we looked at. What's the main job? You've got to replace the old faucet control modules, and by doing that, you get to say goodbye to those repetitive inspections. And when does this all need to happen? Well, the compliance clock starts ticking on March 9th, 2026, but the exact schedule for your fleet is laid out in those service bulletins. And really, the final word here is all about teamwork. To get this done right and on time, you absolutely have to get your camo, planning, maintenance, and even your commercial teams all on the same page. And I can't stress this enough. When it comes time to actually do the work, there is only one source of truth: the official FAA AD text and the Boeing service bulletins. Don't rely on anything else.
Subscribe to Aeropoda YouTube channel.